Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to be diving into a concept that is absolutely fundamental, something that impacts every single one of us, our rights. It's a word we literally hear every single day, but what does it actually mean for us as citizens and as human beings? We're going on a deep dive into the political theory behind our civic entitlements, exploring what true freedom actually demands of us. Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. We're going to cover 1. Defining our rights, 2. The origin of rights, 3. The state and the law, 4. Kinds of rights, and finally 5. Rights and responsibilities. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Defining our rights. Okay, let's dive into this and figure out what a right actually entails. So I want to pose a question to you right off the bat, just to ground this abstract theory in our everyday lives. What is the actual difference between a want and a right? We kind of toss these words around interchangeably all the time, but in political theory, they are literally worlds apart. Think about it. We all have plenty of personal wants, right? You might want to stay out late, or maybe you want to dress exactly how you choose instead of wearing some strict uniform. But those personal desires, they don't automatically become rights. True rights, like, say, the freedom of expression, run so much deeper. They are justified claims that we, as a collective society, recognize as absolutely necessary for us to lead a life of respect and dignity. So if we're pinning down a definition, a right is an entitlement or justified claim. It's something that is truly due to us. It's a claim that society must recognize as legitimate and fundamentally uphold to ensure human dignity and well-being. And here's the real kicker. Because these claims are tied to our most basic human needs, like having the actual opportunity to develop our talents, they are universal. They apply to all human beings living in society. No exceptions. Moving on to Section 2, the origin of rights. It begs the question, where do these incredibly powerful entitlements actually come from? Well, if we look back to the 17th and 18th centuries, theorists argued that rights came straight from natural law. The idea was that we were born with these inalienable natural rights, given by nature or God, specifically the rights to life, liberty, and property. But fast forward to 1948, and the focus really shifted to human rights with the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This built a global consensus that simply being human entitles you to certain guarantees. And today, that list is still evolving and expanding as we face totally new global threats. And this concept is a real game changer. Historically, the whole idea of universal human rights has been the primary tool for oppressed groups to demand equality and challenge segregation. It's through these exact struggles that the interpretation of our laws has been fundamentally altered. It's what successfully abolished practices like slavery and pushed for true equal opportunity in the eyes of the law. And this brilliantly illustrates the moral conception of rights, which was probably best summed up by the 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant. He wrote that everything has either a price or a dignity. That which is elevated above all price and admits of no equivalent has a dignity. Basically, Kant believed that humans possess intrinsic value. We aren't just objects to be used to get what someone else wants. We must be treated morally simply by virtue of being human, regardless of how poor, uneducated, or powerless we might be. Which brings us to Section 3, the state and the law. Because moral outrage is one thing, but how do these philosophical claims become tangible legal protections? The answer, of course, is the law. Rights play a seriously heavy dual obligation on the state. First, it dictates what the government absolutely must do, like enshrining a Bill of Rights in the Constitution, right? Taking proactive steps to fulfill those rights, like providing basic education to everyone. But crucially, it also dictates what the state must strictly refrain from doing. The government can't just take arbitrary actions. They can't just arrest you without a proper judicial process. Ultimately, the state exists to account for citizen well-being above its own sovereign power. All right, Section 4, kinds of rights. Let's talk about the different categories of these freedoms. Rights are generally broken down into 4 main pillars to cover the huge variety of human existence. You've got political rights, like equality before the law and the right to vote. Then, civil liberties, which covers things like a free trial and freedom of expression. Next are economic rights. We're talking basic needs, a minimum wage, housing. And finally, cultural rights, like preserving traditions and getting primary education in your mother tongue. Now, here's the really important connection. Political rights mean very, very little to someone struggling on the pavement without their basic economic needs met. You simply can't exercise your political rights if you're struggling just to survive. And you know what? This list of rights is definitely not static. As our modern societies face new, complex challenges, like environmental degradation, our demands for new categories of rights just keep growing. Today, people are making entirely justified claims for the right to clean air, safe drinking water, the right to information, and sustainable development. As our understanding of dignity evolves, so does our Charter of Rights. Finally, let's pivot to Section 5, Rights and Responsibilities. This is really the critical climax of the chapter. So, the crucial point is that rights don't just place obligations on the state, they place strict responsibilities on us, too. We constantly have to balance our individual rights, like our freedom of speech and personal choices, with our obligations to society. You absolutely cannot use your freedom to deprive others of theirs. For example, I can't use my right to free speech to incite a crowd to hurt my neighbor. We also have a duty to protect the common good, things like minimizing pollution, so that future generations actually inherit a world where they can exercise their rights. And this whole dynamic, it requires us to be truly vigilant citizens. Governments are constantly playing this incredibly delicate constitutional balancing act. They often try to impose restrictions on civil liberties, usually defending it as necessary for national security. But we have to remain watchful to guard against state overreach and creeping authoritarianism. We have to ensure that even a person arrested on suspicion of a massive threat still gets legal counsel and a fair trial. If we just hand the government unchecked power to bypass the courts, it completely undermines the very rights the state was created to protect in the first place. So I want to leave you with this thought. At what point do security restrictions, which are totally designed to protect us, actually become a threat to our rights themselves? The rights we've unpacked today are literally the foundation of a democratic society, but as we've seen, they're incredibly fragile. They require our constant, vigilant participation. Keep exploring that tension, keep questioning everything, and we'll catch you in the next Explainer.